Hey y'all! So today we're going to be starting a new chapter, chapter 13 in the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. Get it flipped over right here. And the title of chapter 13 is Battle Scars, Membership in the Scar Clan. So I think I've already mentioned I really love these last two chapters. The way she presents everything is, in my opinion, a beautiful way to wrap up all the lessons, the stories, everything we've learned throughout the book. And so I really hope that you enjoy it. And I would advise, if you want to keep a little notepad or a journal and a pen close by, you might want to just jot down a few, even if it's just one word, a sentence or one word that resonates with you, because that way you can come back to it and you can expand your thoughts on it a little bit later. So, and I say that because what I tend to do is when something resonates and it catches my attention, like if I'm watching a YouTube video, it's like I'll go ahead in my brain and start, running with it, with the concept, and trying to figure out, what kind of message is wanting to surface for me. And while I'm doing this, I'm missing everything else that's being said. So, if you just have that little notepad or journal ready and you can go ahead and make a note, it just prevents you from missing more of the message. So, all right. Battle Scars, Membership in the Scar Clan. This is going to address primarily carrying the burdens that have been placed on us after going through a psychologically abusive situation, after coming out of a toxic environment or a relationship. It's like what's left, the impact that this leaves on us is affects our confidence and our perspectives in the world and how we operate. And it's basically like I think that's why, we feel broken at first. You know what I mean? It's not so much that we miss, like if you're coming out of a relationship, a toxic relationship, it's not like you miss the person. You may at first, before you really get a good grasp on an understanding about things. But once you realize that it was fake and they're empty and they never truly cared about you, then that shifts. And so it's not about the person, it's about what was done to you, what was done to your mind. And so that's why, I love how in the last chapter she's talking about, addressing the remnants inside of us, like the strong emotions such as rage, starting to think about forgiveness for the purpose of healing ourselves and freeing ourselves from the damage done. And so now it's a good transition into understanding, what the last portion is meant to do for us of our healing, the last portion of the latter stages of our healing, what that's meant to do for us and what is reasonable to expect. You know what I mean? And she talks about, like in the last chapter, she mentioned shrapnel and as a metaphor, and how there's all these tiny shards. It's kind of like once you get past, the more difficult stages of healing, then you're kind of like, you have time to sit there and pick out the little shards as you're examining, metaphorically. And it's like you're just getting stronger and stronger as you pick out each one, and you realize that these can represent misperceptions of yourself, your worth, burdens that you may be carrying, shame you may be carrying that was never yours to carry. Everything, the little bits and pieces that were left of that psychological manipulation that you lived through that almost destroyed you, but it didn't. It didn't. And so, it's only going to get better from here. You're only going to get stronger from here. So take that to heart. You know, a lot of times we, in the midst of being around a manipulative and toxic person who's messing with our minds, a lot of times they can even fool us into labeling totally innocent personality qualities within ourselves, as something to be ashamed of. And it's just, they're so subtle and slick with how they just, you know, just interject these toxic, it's conditioning is what it is. You know, they're interjecting these toxic thoughts, and we're taking it on and carrying it as a burden when it was never ours to carry. So I think that's a good way to enter this chapter, to start a good lens to wear, to look through as we examine everything she's got to say. And so I'm going to go ahead and read to you the beginning of chapter 13. It says, "Tears are a river that take you somewhere. Weeping creates a river around the boat that carries your soul life. Tears lift your boat off the rocks, off dry ground, carrying it downriver to someplace new, someplace better." Excuse me. "There are oceans of tears women have never cried, for they have been trained to carry mothers' and fathers' secrets, men's secrets, society secrets, and their own secrets to the grave." How many times have you you know, in the midst of psychological abuse, have you made excuses for this person, the abuser, the person that you care for, because you're saying, well, you know, they had a bad childhood, or, well, you know, they were hurt before, and so they're just acting from that place of hurt. So it's like you can find yourself making excuses when you're in the middle of it, making excuses for this person, and you're carrying their treatment of you around as a secret. And so that resonated with me, that sentence that she said there. You know, so those tears never get cried, because, you know, we're not acknowledging the truth of the situation. And so it says, "A woman's crying has been considered quite dangerous, for it loosens the locks and bolts on the secrets she bears. But in truth, for the sake of a woman's wild soul, it is better to cry. For women, tears are the beginning of initiation into the Scar clan, that timeless tribe of women of all colors, all nations, all languages, who down through the ages have lived through a great something, and yet who stood proud." Yes. You know, we want to get to the stage where we're crying happy tears, you know, and those are powerful too, and they're beautiful, and that's the goal. "All women have personal stories as vast in scope and as powerful as the Numen in fairy tales, but there is one kind of story in particular which has to do with a woman's secrets, especially those associated with shame. These contain some of the most important stories a woman can give her time to unraveling. For most women, these secret stories are embedded, not like jewels in a crown, but like black gravel under the skin of the soul." Yes. And then she goes into a section called Secrets as Slayers. And she says, whether a woman's secret is shrouded in self-imposed silence, or whether she has been threatened by someone more powerful than she deeply fears disenfranchisement, being considered an undesirable person, disruption of relationships that are important to her, and sometimes even physical harm if she reveals her secret. She says the problem of secret stories surrounded by shame is that they cut a woman off from her instinctive nature. Yes, which is in the main joyous and free. When there is a black secret in the psyche, a woman can go nowhere near it. Yes. So it's like we're living with this inner divide. You know, a self-betrayal that has become our norm, and that is exhausting. And it's you know, if in the midst of it, you know, it's kind of like you're miserable but you don't want to admit it, and you see the red flags, you're living the red flags, you're receiving this mind manipulation, but you don't want to admit it. It's all those things you don't want to admit to yourself. Just like I mentioned in a previous recent video, a friend of mine, when I first met her and hired her as a life coach, and one of the most powerful questions in the first 1 or 2 phone calls she said was, what is it you don't want to admit to yourself? And that's what, holds the key a lot of times. And and just like when she first asked me that, I thought, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just because we're consciously not even willing to bring the truths up to our conscious awareness. So it is a process. And it says this defensive manner is common, and as in the after effects of trauma, secretly influences women's choices and what she will or will not undertake in the outer world. So what we're not realizing is we think we're doing the right thing, in the midst of psychological abuse by carrying these burdens, the projections that the narcissist has placed on us, where we feel bad about ourselves when we really shouldn't. We're carrying that burden. We're carrying the burden of not sharing the treatment of this person toward us because, again, we're making excuses for them, well, they were in a bad mood or whatever it is. And we're carrying this, and we don't really realize in the middle of it that how this is affecting our entire life, every decision we make, and also the cost to us. We're far away. I know that, years ago when I was in this situation, it's like, yeah, you don't realize the cost, what you're giving up, how life could be, how healthy and fulfilling and free life could be if you weren't living in this self-betrayal, with this inner divide. So then she goes into some examples of secrets, and she relates like real life secrets to those found in what she calls high drama, like on TV. And she gives some examples there, like broken promises, loss of temper, inability to do something, anything that would cause a person to feel shame, neglect, abuse, and the list goes on. But most of these themes falling under the category of the sorrowful error. And what she means there, I looked at the little footnote she has here. What she means is our mistake, a mistake. And to me, once you're out of it and you're strong enough to admit these hard things to yourself, that's what it's all about. The fact that you ignored red flags, you made a poor decision. And that's where our ego is the problem here, because a lot of times we don't want to admit this to ourselves. And so that's really what it comes down to. And then I'm gonna read a little bit more to you. It says secrets like fairy tales and dreams also follow the same energy patterns and structures as those found in drama. But secrets, instead of following the heroic structure, follow the tragic structure. The heroic drama begins with a heroine, I hope I'm saying that right, on a journey. Sometimes she is not psychologically awake. Yeah, that's, we're naive. Sometimes she is too sweet and doesn't perceive danger. Or we've been conditioned to not catch, these flags, or to normalize these things, And so we don't perceive danger. Sometimes she has already been mistreated and makes the desperate moves of a captured creature. However she begins, the heroine eventually falls into the clutches of whatever or whoever and is sorely tested. Then through her wit, and because she has people who care for her, she is freed and stands taller as a result. I definitely think community and finding your people, your tribe, is so important, even in the midst of it, if possible. In a tragedy, the heroine is snatched, forced, or driven straight into hell and is subsequently overwhelmed with no one to hear her cries, or else her pleas are ignored. Yeah, because remember, covert abuse, other people don't see it. So, if you're in the midst of everything and you're trying to, share with someone you trust, it's possible they're going to gaslight you and not believe you. And it can cause you to lose hope. She loses hope. It says her pleas are ignored. She loses hope, loses touch with the preciousness of her life, and collapses. So that is one outcome. Instead of being able to savor her triumph over adversity or her wisdom of choices and her endurance, she is degraded and deadened. The secrets a woman keeps are almost always heroic dramas that have been perverted into tragedies that go nowhere. But there is good news. The way to change a tragic drama back into a heroic one is to open the secret, speak of it to someone, write another ending. Yes. Examine one's part in it and one's attributes in enduring it. These learnings are equal parts pain and wisdom. The having lived through it is a triumph of the deep and wild spirit. Yes. So then she goes into talking about how everybody makes mistakes. You know, I mean, none of us are perfect. So she elaborates on that. And then she says, this is profound to me. She says, the self is a wildish God who understands the nature of creatures. It is often hard for us to act right, especially when the basic instincts, including intuition, are cut away. Now, if we look at that statement through the lens of what all this is about in this chapter, shame and releasing the burden of shame that was never ours to carry, which as a Christian, you know, the lens on that would be that Christ came to set us free, right? It's a gift offered. And so she says the self is a wildish God, or I would say a spark of the divine, you know, our true self, that inner wild woman, who understands the nature of creatures. In other words, deep down we know that nobody's perfect. So we're given grace to this abuser or this toxic environment or situation or person, group. We're given so much grace to them, right? In the middle of everything. But we're not giving that same grace to ourselves. And so deep down we know that we deserve that too. And we only deserve it because of that gift offered. You know what I'm saying? We don't just automatically deserve it. So that's, you know, through the Christian lens, again, feel free to apply your own lens, but it's offered to us. But again, the whole turning point, the main piece of it is the willingness to admit fault, admit error, admit mistakes, wrongdoing, which is through, you know, a spiritual lens, a religious lens would be a confession, because you can't accept you know, repentance and forgiveness, you know, from the divine without that. So you have to admit the problem first. There's so many layers to that. I hope that the way I'm positioning this is getting the wheels turning for you, which again is always my goal, so that you can see kind of how the mechanics of this work. I'm trying to convey it. So, but she's basically saying deep down we know, you know, that it's hard for us to always know the right thing to do, you know, especially when the basic instincts, including intuition, are cut away. And that's what a narcissist does. That's what a manipulative person does. They want you to be disconnected. They want that inner divide to drive you so that you can be manipulated, so that you will carry the burden of shame that's not yours to carry. It's a lie. It's a lie. So, and you know where that comes from a spiritual lens. It's not from the good guy, good side. The light, it's not from the light. So, it says, in the archetype of the secret, an enchantment of sorts, like a spell, I would say, right, is cast like a black net across part of a woman's psyche, and she is encouraged to believe that the secret must never be revealed. And further, she must believe that if she does reveal it, all decent persons who come across her shall revile her in perpetuity. This additional threat, as well as the secret shame itself, causes a woman to carry not one burden but two. This sort of enchantment threat is a pastime only among persons inhabiting a small and black space in their hearts. Among persons of warmth and love for the human condition, quite the opposite is true. They would help to draw out the secret, for they know it makes a wound that will not heal until the matter is given words and witness. You have to shine a light on the darkness, even if it's painful. you know, our own darkness, our own conditioning and error, because we all have some error. We've all made some mistakes, and we have to shine the light on a situation that may involve another person that we, you know, care about or once cared about. We just have to acknowledge the truth, the hard truth, and nothing but the truth. You know, it has to be done. The light exposes all. So, yes. Then she goes into a section called the dead zone, which is like a void within a person. No spiritual essence. It says, the keeping of secrets cuts a woman off from those who would give her love. I don't know how to pronounce this word. S-U-C-C-O-R. And protection. It causes her to carry the burden of grief and fear all by herself, and sometimes for an entire group, whether family or culture. Further, as Jung said, keeping secrets cuts us off from the unconscious. Where there is a shaming secret, there is always a dead zone in the woman's psyche, a place that does not feel or respond properly to her own continuing emotional life events or to the emotional life events of others. So we're not, it's almost like a snowball effect where, you know, we're not operating from a good place to begin with. And so it's like every decision made, every choice made, every step we make from this place of error is just going to create more error and more of a divide within us, which is why a lot of us who have come out of a bad situation, we can look back and see, you know, how unhealthy we were, even physically. It manifests in your body. It's meant to destroy you. All of this, you know, lies and manipulation, and all of it's meant to destroy you. And that's how it works. It eventually becomes, as you're operating from this place of error, from this place of inner divide, it becomes a snowball effect because you're making all these wrong choices. You're not walking in alignment with your gut, with the divine, with the higher plan for your life. And I can say this from experience. You know what I mean? So if any of this is hitting a sore place within you, please know that I've been there. And none of my words are ever meant to cast judgment. They're just meant to help, again, get the wheels turning, because I want all of us to get to that good place where we are aligned with the light. And the light is what is leading us, not our ego, not a manipulative person doing so for their own gain or in hopes that we, you know, destroy ourselves, and which would make the darkness so happy. So I just want to say that. And so I'm going to stop here. It goes into a little bit more about in the section of the dead zone as preparation for the next story, which is called The Woman with Hair of Gold. And we're going to get into that next time. But I just, you know, when she talks about the dead zone, it's like, truly, she's talking about it like when you've been abused, I feel like. But you can also apply it to people who live that way. And that would be like a narcissist, someone who's void, empty, robotic, and has to get, you know, their energetic sustenance from us, you know, which is why you literally feel like your life force is being sucked from you when you're in the middle of it. It's brutal. And so you get to a point where you can't pour anything out into your own life from a place of creation to create more goodness for yourself or even others, because you're empty, you're void now, because all this has been stolen from you, because this person over here isn't creating this for themselves, you know, because they're void and empty, but they stay that way forever. And so, you know, because we all fall short of the glory, because we all make mistakes, there's going to be times when we feel, you know, closer to empty as well. But we're going to come out of it. That's the difference. And it's hard. Nobody's saying it's easy. It's very hard. But I just want you to be encouraged that I don't feel like healing is always just like this. Sometimes it's, you know, it's like this. You know, but as we're going up, you know, if you zoom out, you're still going to see that incline, you know, but it's going to, you know, feel like all this. So I just want you to stay encouraged. I want to encourage you to focus on the good. See it all. Be strong enough to see it all and admit it all to yourself as you're growing and learning and healing. But just focus on the good and on creating a beautiful life for yourself and for those you are aligned with and that you love and care about. So I hope this has given you a lot to journal about today, to think on today. I hope this has encouraged you and inspired you that there are good things to come. Just know that. And I just hope that you have a beautiful day, and I will see you again very soon.